Ok, hello. Je parle français, mais pas très bien. Alors, je peux commencer. Ça va pas vous déranger si je fais en anglais? It's better. Ah, okay, good. Well, it's not because I think your English isn't good enough. It's not this at all. I just wasn't sure if you preferred. Okay, so. If you prefer English, that's good for both of us then. Okay, well, my name is Jason. I also have the name Fluency MC, which you may know from the E for English books. And I'd like to focus on two things, really. This idea, and then also specifically songs that I've written for E for English to talk a bit about the songs and particularly how I suggest you might practice a little bit with students to help inspire them to listen more to the songs. So I've deliberately highlighted the stress motivating students to practice with writing because today I'll talk a lot about reduced and connected speech, rhyme, rhythm, and how magical they really are to help us remember language and become familiar and comfortable with pronunciation. So this word practice is super important to me because I'm not a traditional classroom teacher anymore. I was for many years. And the reason this word is so important is because practice is different from the classroom in many ways. So this video that I made in New York many years ago, I didn't make because I was a rapping teacher in the classroom. So many people have misunderstood, it's probably my fault for posting this video in the first place, that I teach class with rap, because in fact, it's really the opposite. Because I wanted to do more traditional communicative activities in my class, I decided to write songs. Because the problem I faced is a problem I think many of you face, which is you have a great activity to do, but the students don't have the target language here to do the activity in a way that's fun and easy, because it's take a lot of labor involved when you have to check the book and look and you're translating. So I made this song 3 years before YouTube on CDs for my students to listen at home. And this song that I not just wrote, but wrote for E for English is another irregular verb song. And the whole point of writing a song where you have the verb and the participles, it's not because people speak like this, I took, taken the bus, right? It's similar to how we learn multiplication. Nobody says in a daily conversation, 9 times 7 is 63. We don't get this repetitive input. So it's the same with irregular verbs. My students in New York, they were out in the world, in the States, trying to learn English, but they weren't getting enough repetition, comprehensible input, and repetition of that input. So the idea was, if they listen at home on CDs to my song, and then they come to class, and I had songs for different things, not just irregular verbs, many songs, right, that connected to the communicative activities and the objectives we had in the syllabus and for ourselves as an English class, and they felt, oh wow, I can remember, it's here. And this was so exciting for me. So I talk a lot about practice. I have workshops for teachers only on this idea, and not just with music, but practice in many ways with different things in English. But for me, it's really different to distinguish between studying, practicing, and using. So many students will tell me, conversation with someone is practice. And I think that's very interesting, because when you think about practice in terms of, for example, practicing the piano, or practicing basketball, or practicing dance, or cooking, the conversation is analogous more to performance. It's where you demonstrate, right? You're nervous because it's real. It's not repetition. And when you check a dictionary, Oh, do you know this? Practice makes? No. Much better, I think. I just wanted to throw that in there. But when you check practice in a dictionary, you inevitably see this word in some form. The noun, the adjective, the adverb, because that's what practice is. So when I'm with English learners, different ages, right? We talk about, basketball. Do you study basketball and then you play a match, or do you repeat? And what is practice? It's repetition. What's the problem with repeating things in English? Usually traditionally it's boring, right? So a colleague of mine who you may know, he's an author for Cambridge. He's written, if you know the series Passages, for example, you might know. Chuck Sandy, he's done a lot of great things. But I asked him once what he thought fluency was, or how to achieve fluency. And I ask many people that question. And this is my favorite response. The practice builds accuracy. So you can speak with not perfect English, right? But when you speak and when you listen, right, you can understand more easily and you can speak more easily because your grammar and vocabulary are more accurate. How do you feel then? Right? More confident because people understand you better and you understand them better. And then this confidence can lead to fluency, where you're able to achieve what you want to with the language, where you are, wherever you are. So you're probably familiar with Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives, which has been reworked and reconfigured, and there's always a hot debate about these. For my purposes today, I've got the old-fashioned 1959 cognitive objective hierarchy just to point out that this word is here, and I feel like my job is I'm the practice guy, trying to help build the memory of the language that then can be used to go up. Right? And that's from the beginning what I was doing with songs. And what I talk to teachers mostly about these days is this idea. Because when I meet teachers, and I travel a lot to different countries and around France increasingly now, to do ateliers with students and also teacher training, I meet teachers who are frustrated, and they often feel it's because their lesson is boring or their book is bad or they're not a native speaker, all these different things. But in the end, I feel the reason it's not this, it's the students just don't have enough exposure to comprehensible input, and they don't then come to class feeling confident and ready for your activity because you have them for 3 hours. And that's not enough time to provide any sort of repetition. And do we want to use the time in class that we have to do repetitive practice? I don't think so. I think that's best done out of class. And then in class, we continue to focus on communicative activities, but that language needs to be there. So with young children, right, I can do école primaire, very young kids, and we can do, take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on, more. I don't need a song, right? Because it's just instinctive to want to get that that repetition. But I don't usually work with young children. I usually work with collège, lycée, and adults. So what do we naturally like to repeat? For example, drama club. In order to, it's such a funny one you just showed us. I love that one in Buckingham Palace. To be able to remember all of that language, what do they have to do? They have to listen many times, not because, you have to listen or I need to improve my English, so I have to listen, right? This is what I always think about. So probably number one, what do we like to repeat? More than anything. Yeah, a song. I mean, would you normally read a magazine article 15 times? I mean, even if you liked it a lot. And maybe a movie if it's your all-time favorite movie, but usually when we're younger, we do that, not as we get older, but songs, right? We will repeat again and again. So when I'm with students doing my atelier, I say hello, and they say hello, and then I say hello, and they say right? Right, or an espresso, right. But think about this. Well, when I was younger, because I'm old, maybe some of you are also old, I don't know. But look at the wonderful grammar, right? The subject, verb, inversion for the yes or no question, the present continuous, right? The preposition, collocation, we look for, right? It's all there, right? So as a practice tool, right, that you then, to get the language here, to then do all the creative stuff you want to do, all the things we're talking about today, creative writing and drama, songs can really get that there for them, depending on the song, of course. And that's what's great about what we've done here, I think. So this is, backed up in research, and this is just from an NPR article that has a lot of research. This doesn't have research quoted in it. But to explain that phenomenon, that when I say hello, you say it's me, or we will rock you, or I don't know if you know, but I can get an entire auditorium of students to say, I have a pen, I have an apple, apple. But see, you don't know that one, do you? Yeah. Some people know that one. So what's so fantastic about music is that with music, we know the next words. And when you think about what is fluency, it's really knowing what comes next, right? Being ready with the next words. And so rhyme and rhythm, these are the two phenomena, right? Behind this, to the two ways that our brains are able to achieve this type of memory, right? So rhyme, how does it promote English language learning? And by the way, I'm going quickly because I want to have questions at the end. So it's not that I don't want to talk among ourselves, it's on the contrary. So I'm kind of gonna and then leave time at the end. So rhyme, right? Different things here, and many of them are related, and I think there's nothing new here probably for most of you. But just to highlight the idea of chunking, the lexical approach and collocations is what really turned me on in the first place as an English language teacher. But rhyme is similar when you think about it. Collocation, words that naturally go together, they just fit, and similar sounds. There's like this feeling of, right? That they go together, and that's pleasing to us. And it's pleasing on the neurological level, on the physiological level, because it's easier to remember, and we want to have more facility to remember things. And that's the getting it stuck in your head idea. Rhyme is, when you know what comes next, there's that expectation when it goes, it stays longer in your head. And this is really important in English. So, for example, we have so, go, no, and why? That's insane. It doesn't make any sense. And so, I meet students so often, and teachers who struggle with this problem. My students can read something, but especially French students, when the words, similar cognates or the identical spelling of the word, but it sounds completely different. And but what's really, really great about music with lyrics, les paroles, is that when you listen to a song and you read the words and you're connecting, right, those sound spelling relationships naturally. You're not doing phonics study. You're not thinking, how many different sounds are there for this combination of letters. You don't have to think, how do I say the word? You don't think, how do I write it? Because you just remember. And that goes back to sort of my credo, relax, repeat, remember, right? You don't have to think, do I say do or do? Because you hear this word enough and see it. And it's true of other words. You just need more exposure and more repetition, especially. So Then you have the opposite problem, of course, where the letters are different, but the words rhyme. And with rhyme, you don't have to, again, stop and think about this. It might be interesting, right, to go under the microscope with your students and think about why and where and, etymology of words. But in the end, that path usually doesn't lead to quick acquisition of language. It's more interesting if it motivates them about English, but it's, right? Then we have rhythm. And rhythm and rhyme are very similar in the chunking sense, because rhythm is also it's a repetitive pattern. And rhythm is not only an audio phenomenon, right? It's also physical. Right? Rhythm is repetition of sound and movement. And it's back to this predictable pattern idea. So whether it's collocations, rhythm, or rhyme, and I like to put them all together, then you really have the power of that predictability leading to that encoding. Kinesthetic learning, it's not just for certain learning styles. We all learn kinesthetically, maybe some more than others. So total physical response works so well in storytelling. And with songs, it's kind of natural to do movement. Stories, yes it is, but songs we really move because of rhythm. And at the bottom I have my favorite, right? I call it shrinking and linking, right? The reduced and connected speech, where you're saying, il mange les mots, right? Because French is so different from English in this way. So I have a whole presentation on this, which I won't do to save time, but you may be interested to explore the reason behind this, which is really, English used to be a language where you could change word order more easily, right? There's cases to words. It was more Germanic. And then it changed, and the word order became very fixed, right? And actually the rhythm that we find in English is connected to this subject, verb, object, complement word order. And this is why in English, compared to most other languages, some people say, compared to any language, which is not exactly true, you can continue to add grammar words and you still keep the same rhythm, right? Well, this is really interesting, especially for rap music, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But first, we're talking about how rhyme and rhythm help us remember, but then what about motivation? Well, I think that's huge with music, right? Again, nothing here that you probably haven't already thought about. But the last one here, right? Really that idea of, it's just fun. What did Rupert say earlier? A student said, I wrote it down, but let's see if I can remember. Here somewhere. I like language when it's rhyming. I love that. But why do you like it when it's rhyming? Probably, I don't know, right? So you can look at it physiologically. Like I said, I think it's just this natural, right? The way young kids want to repeat. We want rhyme. These are all things that help us remember and make it easier to learn. And the easier it is to learn, the more, right? It's a friendly cycle, right? As opposed to a vicious cycle. So that's this idea here. When I realized that my students in New York City needed more repetitive practice with irregular verbs, but also other things, and it hit me right away, songs, because it's not a new idea that songs, all the things we're talking about. The reason I decided to write my own songs were these reasons, right? So I like many of you, can continue to use songs, pop songs, other songs, not just songs I write, but it was really hard for me because I wanted songs that were directly connected to what I was doing in the textbook or in the syllabus or what my students needed, whoever they were. If they were students preparing for nursing school, I wanted like my own, medical English rap, or so, not something. How can I go out in the world and find something that's going to be good for them? Or the other possibility, using the medical English song in the textbook. which they thought, this is a stupid song, so they hated the song. So that's why it was so great to work with E4English, because we really wanted to write, make songs that would connect with, the functions and the structures, vocabulary, but also not, feel like baby songs and, not interesting to listen to. So I think it's great to go out and try to find a song that matches, but there are these issues, and when we have questions after, we could talk about this a little bit more if you like. It's an interesting topic, right? So far, I've been talking mainly about music, not rap music. And I grew up with hip hop, so when I was younger, I was a DJ. I didn't make raps, I didn't rhyme until, not seriously, just a little bit, until I started writing songs for my students. But I quickly realized the advantages of using rap. So at first, the main reason was I don't sing, and I grew up with hip hop, so if I'm going to write songs, it's going to be rap, right? But there are a number of other advantages, and one is, right, all songs have rhyme. Well, not all songs. Let's backtrack a little bit. Most songs in English, pop songs, not all, right, have rhyme. They all have rhythm and the rhythm of English. However, right, rap follows much more closely the patterns of stress patterns in conversation. So if you have a song that's more melodic, right? So a great example of this, like a word like everybody, where the stress is everybody. So a word like everybody, right, in a pop song usually sounds like everybody, right? Which is fine, but yeah, because, the person writing that song, back to, I think I had, where was the poetic licenses somewhere, right? Yeah, I mean, this is the idea. It's not, you have to follow exactly the way, right? But if you're learning English as a second language, what do you need? You need a lot of exposure and repetition with the natural rhythms of conversation. I'm not teaching students to rap. I want to use this as a way to help build their listening skills, their pronunciation skills, make it easier to remember language and to produce language, right? This is interesting, not just because I forgot to use a period there, excuse me, but I've had students tell me, I don't really like rap, but I like your songs, and why? Well, I don't like singing in front of people, like it's more like just talking, and that's great. This one also, I've had many teachers and students tell me, right? It's easier for them to write the next verse to a song from a book like this, a song that I've written, because they don't have to think about a melody right? They're just kind of writing a rap. And this is one of the reasons why my ateliers have been successful in France, especially because hip hop has such a great history in France and is so familiar and recognizable. So many students participate in it, whether it's breakdancing, beatboxing, right, rapping, DJing, street art, right? There are these, and this is true in every country of the world, right? Not just in France or Europe. So what I want to focus on now, before we talk more specifically about the songs from the book, which I want to get to soon. One thing teachers often ask me is, how can I use a song when I have this syllabus, I have such little time with my students? And my answer is very clear, because for me, I didn't use songs so much in class. So I like to, and I strongly recommend you do it if you can, but maybe not the dominant part of the lesson, because of just time is one thing. But another thing is I've found more success in general using a song little by little, the way you might divide up a text, a book, obviously, but even like a short story. You don't do it all, on the same day. But especially out of class practice, which is another reason I really like what we've done here. You know, if, and it's a big if, you can get a student inspired and hooked so that they're going to listen to a song at home in English and repeatedly, we hope. And again, back at the beginning, I mentioned this, that perhaps our most important job is to get students to do practice out of class, because there is the internet, there are all these things. If they feel comfortable, if they enjoy it, if they'll listen to that song, then they're going to come to class really prepared for all the great things you've planned. So one thing that I like, in general, I like kind of the basic psychology of just kind of, you know, not you should do the song, right? Complete opposite. You know, you play the song. I mean, it's in these books, it goes with the theme. So whatever you're doing, right, you can kind of have it on. What's that? Oh, that's that song. I'm, you know, kind of not drawing too much attention to it as some kind of assignment or we're going to do. While you're doing other tasks in the chapter, right? You can kind of go and find things from the song. Again, kind of going around the song a little bit. And again, so when they get to the song, when you're going to do something with the song, they're more familiar with it already. I think that's very important, and kind of like, boom, here's this new thing that you have to now, you know, rap, which doesn't usually work well. Then, as I mentioned before, right, a little bit at a time, which I'm going to demonstrate today with just part of a song. And then here, you might think easier said than done. Maybe you've got students, depends on their age, their personalities, the resources at home, internet connections, you know, their time. There's so many variables, but this is my mission, really, and YouTube is one reason I'm so interested in this, because so often YouTube can help get students to do out-of-class practice. I have two slides. One is procedures with songs, and one is more activities with songs. And I'm interested, if we have time, to hear your ideas at the end. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. But I've found that really important for students to feel comfortable with lyrics, because in real life with a song, we don't make rules about lyrics. You know, I should look, I shouldn't look, you know, you know, it's something that if you enjoy the song and you're curious, you're going to read. It's like with drama club, you've got the script, you know, but after you know it well enough, you naturally don't need to look, as opposed to, you know, some pressure to memorize, which I don't agree with. But you may want to practice, you know, showing them before, during, after, experimenting with this. Roughly in this order, I personally do things, right? So you're not immediately making it like, let's talk about the grammar and the vocab, but after they're comfortable with it, right, to help them with that. Right? These are really traditional suggestions, nothing original that I've come up with. Just procedures that I've found have worked well with collège and lycée. And then more structured activities. I'm sure everyone has heard or done some sort of gap fill. And gap fill is really interesting when you think about it, because it's dictation, right? It's a dictée, right? But it's really dictée. It's listening and, right, pausing. The great thing about gap fill to me is if students get interested in it. If they don't like it, then you don't do it. But if they like it, what's nice about it is it forces repetition, because you go back, you listen again. It's that dictation idea. And that's what I'm all about, the repetition. You don't have to do it with them. This is doesn't have to be class activity, right? It's, you know, you say en autonomie, right? Self-study, right? Many of these activities are not self-study. They're more things you can do to increase interaction in class and more communicative activities with songs. On the other hand, these can be more on their own. And it's really more about the repetition than anything else and feeling comfortable with the song. I really like this one. I don't know, again, I'm at the end. I want to make sure, I think we'll be fine, to have time. If you have ideas, things that have worked for you, because when I've done talks like this, often the greatest ideas come when one teacher mentions something he's done or she's done, and oh, I want to try that. So we'll make sure we have time for this. Then, in a moment, I want to look at songs from the book. Just some things that I feel are very important. Don't take away lyrics. Remember, it's that sound-spelling relationship. It's seeing the text while you're listening that can be so great and friendly for the brain to have that opportunity. And I've seen again and again students who just stop looking at the lyrics when they have it and they're ready to sing or rap. And that's the other thing. Pressuring people to produce. Usually we have good intentions, I want you to try, do the song. But what happens when someone tells you to do a song, right? Usually, I mean, the most extroverted, the students who like to show off, and this is one thing, and that's the idea of having different roles, right? Which I had on another slide. Not, putting everybody in the position of, doing the song in front of other people. Oh yes, it's here, isn't it? And this one's important, and some teachers say to me, I really like your songs, but I can't use them. I say, well, why? Because I don't rap. And I find that very strange because, now I don't, but at first, because the way I think about it is, if I play a film clip in class, right? I don't have to be George Clooney, right? I don't have to, okay, good point. I understand. I don't mean you put on my song and you go have a coffee and watch the students, come on, do the song, But I don't think you have to be, right? You can be someone who's more facilitating the activity, who's monitoring what's going on. You don't have to be the person who's doing it. There are ways to do that, which I'll show you in a moment. And I think this is really, really important. And what I probably suggest more strongly than anything else from my experience is, a song, think about it, in French for you or English for me. Do you start doing the song when you hear it the first time? Even in your own language? Do you start doing the song even the third time? It's normally, right, after multiple listenings that we start singing along to something, because our brain needs its receptive skills. Right? We need to process so many different things. And in a second language, right, even more. This is even more important. So I find that, again, teachers often have good intentions, and I had this problem before. Like, why aren't they singing? Why aren't they doing it, right? And usually it's not shyness or they're bad students or this kind of stuff. It's just they just need to really see the words and hear it more times, right? So I want to talk about this song. Sorry, my slide is not very good, but I have the lyrics on another page. This is from 5e, Day in New York City. And I want to play the song once, and I'll just, while I'm playing it, go like this so you can follow along with the lyrics, and then we'll talk about it for a moment. So I have to DJ a bit here. Let's see. Just a second. Okay.
Gotham, New York.
New York City, it's Brooklyn and Queens. The Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan in between. The Big Apple, Gotham, the city that never sleeps. Come with me on a journey through its avenues and streets.
New York City, New York.
New York City.
We're spending the day in New York City, climbing to the top of the Statue of Liberty, taking the ferry back to Manhattan. We're downtown walking around. There's so much happening. Let's buy Metro cards and take the subway. Let's go to Midtown to catch a Broadway play. New York City, it's Brooklyn and Queens. The Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan in between. The Big Apple, Gotham, the city that never sleeps. Stick with me on a journey through its avenues and streets.
New York City. New York, New York.
New York City.
Let's check out the lights and colors in Times Square. It's noisy, but it's thrilling. There are people everywhere. It's lunchtime, we're in Central Park, grabbing a bite. Now let's jump in a cab so we can see more sights. We'll have just enough time to visit the Met before we head to the Brooklyn Bridge and cross the river at sunset.
New York.
Never sleeps.
New York City, it's Brooklyn and Queens. The Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan in between. New York is crowded, dynamic, sometimes over the top. Exciting or overwhelming, the action's nonstop.
New York City.
Everything you want is right here.
Be Heart NY.
Thank you. Thank you. So first, I would like to focus on what we did with these songs, which was to incorporate vocabulary from the unit and grammar from the unit. Right? Be plus ing, and then also other ings forms, gerund forms, ing forms, right? As they occur naturally. Right? And I just highlighted this part to save time, but you can explore the other parts of the song to find things, and then of course all of the songs that we wrote for these books. One of my favorite things about this song is just how maddening the whole idea of articles or no articles, Central Park, not the Central Park, right? But how do we build that accuracy? Remember, practice builds accuracy. It's not thinking about a rule, I don't think, because you start to look at rules with articles and you realize all the exceptions, and then we're talking about collège and lycée. We're not talking about graduate school linguists here. So, but once you hear it enough times and you see it enough times, right, it's not the Central Park, right? Because you're not thinking, you're just remembering from reading and from listening. Again, why the ferry? Because it's the ferry in New, but you don't really need to talk about this as much as I think you need the repetition. The green, these are words that were in the unit. This one, A Blessing or a Curse, this is troisième. It's a street art song. And here, the grammar, modal verbs, should, will, and there's one more. I think should, will, and may, I think. Might, yeah? Okay. But especially this unit is focusing on vocabulary and really awesome, colorful adjectives like provocative, and some great nouns for describing me. It's about street art. It really comes alive, this unit. I love this unit. And great collocations like celebrate their work, condemn them for their actions. I can say they're great because I did not write these things as much as I took them and put them in a song. So the rhythm and rhyme I can take credit for, but the vocabulary comes from the other authors. So that's looking at what's in the songs. And as far as what you could do to explain vocabulary, explain grammar, I actually think with this song, you don't need to so much because you have all of the other units. I mean, I really, to prepare for today, looked in the units, and it just occurred to me that better than using the song as a way to talk so much about, right, grammar and vocabulary, you have that other places. It's more finding it, identifying it. Oh, that's, modal verb from the, right? It's more making that connection maybe. But more than anything else, for most of you and your students, I think it's not about picking apart the grammar and the vocabulary in the song as much as just getting that practice with what you've been doing in the other tasks where all of this stuff occurs, so that it's easier to remember either before you do the activities, other tasks, or during, or after, or the students are doing them alone at home, just listening, so it's easier for them. But then there's pronunciation, right? A different thing. And I understand if you might not always feel so comfortable leading a kind of exercise in rhythm or rhyme. If you are, it's great. I know I wasn't until I got much more experience. But one thing I want to point out that's so important about stress in my songs, and it's not the case for everyone who does what I do, is the stress is identical to conversation. So when I say this to you, I don't rap it, the stress is the same. So, New York City, it's Brooklyn and Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan in between, the Big Apple, Gotham, the city that never sleeps. Come with me on a journey through its avenues and streets. Right? So the stress is the same. Even more important for you to think about is that the stress is always on the beat. So if your question is, well, how do I know where the stress is? It's already been taken care of. So New York City, it's Brooklyn and Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan in between, the Big Apple, Gotham, the city that never sleeps. Come with me on a journey through its avenues and streets, right? So I don't mark the stress in the books. You don't need to because it's there. And I think for most people, it comes just through the repetition, that natural, more familiarity with the shrinking and linking of the words without having to, again, under the microscope, talk about stress patterns and how this works and this, or that you need to even know about those things unless you're interested in them. So this is true for all the songs. So this means if you want, you can make slides like this, right? Where you pull out parts of the lyrics, you highlight the stress if you want to or not. So one thing I do, we have a video. Can we show the video? I just want to show you, I was with a group of college students, and thank you, for E for English. And but you need to understand something before we start. The students had never heard the song before. Okay, and so it's quite different than what I'm recommending, which is if you get to a point like I do in the video where you're helping them with the stress and you're getting them to repeat after you, this should be after they know the song very well, right? Of course, they're not wondering about meaning, but also they already have listened enough times. If you try to do some sort of pronunciation, okay, everybody, let's go. New York City, it's Brooklyn and Queens. Like, oh, it's too difficult, or it's contrived, it's not natural. But if they've heard it enough times, right, it kind of just comes out. So I was lucky because this group of students was very cooperative. But I would say that I know if they'd heard the song more. And it was kind of intentional, actually, to not prep them, because the point was sort of, okay, if I go in there cold, can I get their attention and get them working with me on it?
My name is Jason, or Fluency MC. Fluency MC, now stick with me and you'll see.
With English, I think sometimes when you repeat, it's boring. You want to remember what to say. And songs, when we repeat the song, we remember the next words. My job is to help you practice. And I made a song for this book. The chapter is called Terror at the White House, and the song is about which holiday? Halloween. And the name of the song is Halloween Night. I want to play the song one time. Just listen and see if you hear some Halloween words. And then I want to look at the lyrics with you together. Okay?
On the 31st of October, Halloween night, we threw a crazy party. We put out all the lights.
Before we practice, I want to make sure you understand everything. We put out all the lights. What does that mean? We put out the lights. Did you have a party with your classmates? What did you do? How did you celebrate? Good. So I want to now play the music. I want you to read, listen, and read.
We had spectacular fun in an old haunted mansion. It was filled with spider webs and frightening decorations.
Me and then you. What did you do for Halloween?
What did you do for Halloween?
You sound good. Did you go out? No, I stayed in. Do you know spider? So spider webs. Okay. Ghosts, maybe vampires, monsters. Good. Everybody ready? Yeah. Are you ready? I watched the harp. It scared me out of my skin. How about you? What did you do?
How did you celebrate?
Very good. Good job. In the song Halloween Night, we have jack-o'-lantern, we have monster, we have haunted mansion. Good. So remember, these are the lyrics. We have this part, this part, this part. What did you do for Halloween? Did you go out? No, I stayed. See, you remember. Oh. You remember because it's a song.
What did you do? How did you celebrate?
Really nice. Every time is better. Okay, so last time with the music. Ready? We're gonna put some music on and try it again. You sound really good.
We had spectacular fun in an old haunted mansion. It was filled with spider webs and frightening decorations. What did you do? How did you celebrate?
Very nice. Good job. Good. What's great about these chapters is, you know, if you're doing other tasks, when you get to the song, it's not new vocabulary. On the contrary, right? It's you know, recycling. It's practice. You know, back to that word I keep using. You know, more than it's. I mean, it's great if you can connect it and the ideas and the messages, but those ideas and messages are in the chapters. So you know, it's more, to my mind, a way to get the language really up there and be motivated. And I've really seen when students have, again, heard the song many times, so how can we get them to listen to the song more at home? I'm curious to hear your ideas about that, but you know, that's where I've had the most success. And back to when I started with the CDs, my students were really listening to my songs. And that's why when they came to class, they were really ready to do the activities that we had. Basically finished here. I just wanted to, where is it? Yes, leave you with this thought, actually two thoughts. When you relax and enjoy your time, it's easy to learn with rhythm and rhyme. And then sort of a common theme throughout the day, right? What we learn with pleasure, we never forget. So whether it's music, short video clips, interviews, all these things today, drama, creative writing, right? I think that's really important. So thank you very much, but let's have time for questions if you have them. Thank you. We'll keep this on here. Does anyone have a question or a comment?
I have a question as far as the irregular verbs are concerned. Did you find that the students found it easy to use the irregular verbs in a different context when they learnt it by heart before using them in sentences?
Yes, I mean, the main thing for me when I wrote that song was it was not to learn how to use the verbs at all. It was understanding the meaning and being familiar with the spelling and the pronunciation, so that in class, when we did activities, right, present perfect, you know, passive, you know, modal perfects, whatever, I already know that. it's back to multiplication table. When you know 9 times 7 is 63, you can do more math. So it's that idea of, having that part taken care of, sort of a flipped classroom idea, get that out of there at home, not in class, old-fashioned audiolingual repeating things. Have it be familiar, they feel more confident, more motivated. Then it's like, oh, I've seen that one before. Right? They're not stopping to think and checking the list to try to remember. But no, it's not at all a pedagogy of learning how they're used or anything like this. But I will say that this song, Sing, Sang, Sung, which I wrote with E for English, I like much better. First of all, I wrote my irregular verb song 10 years ago. But this one, I like it because it's the same idea, right? Using the 3 parts of the verb. But it really, really sticks in your head. And if you look at the lyrics, I think they're better contextualized there. So I'm not sure I answered your question or not.
You have, in part, because that's a big debate. I think that to learn all the irregular verbs as a list or as a song, because basically it's the same, because when you learn sing, sang, sung, you have a rhythm in a way with all the irregular verbs, actually. And I still do that. I ask my pupils to learn the irregular verbs, but apparently it's not the case for everybody. Some people just decide to learn the verbs in context and not the rest of the list. So it's a question. I'm still working on. I'm not really sure if I'm doing the right thing or not.
One thing I should say. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Just that another reason I wrote that song, and also Sing, Sang, Sung, but also we wrote a song with comparatives or modal verbs. I'm not taking the whole list. So another reason is to get the high frequency verbs in the song, to not have, weave, wove, woven in my song. Okay, so the thing is about a list, an alphabetical list is a reference tool. We don't learn and remember alphabetically. So, to compare my song or other people's ways of getting repetition with irregular verbs to a list is not fair, because the list is there if you want to check something, letter D. It's not something that you can use as a tool, to upload the information. But yeah, the number one reason I contextualized them the way I did was just actually to get the basic meaning, but also the rhyme. So much of it is about familiarity with the pronunciation of those words and the spelling of those words, which a list doesn't provide. There's no audio. There's no, like this. Yes. Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking. Actually, get back to French, maybe. Par rapport à ta question, je pense qu'il y a plusieurs choses. L'un n'exclut pas l'autre. Et je pense qu'il y a un intérêt certain à découvrir les verbes irréguliers au fur et à mesure de leur emploi les premières années, c'est-à-dire en 6e, fin de 6e, 5e. Et puis, quand, là, effectivement, ce sont des verbes à haute fréquence d'emploi, une fois que cette découverte, elle a été faite en contexte et que le sens a été construit, on peut proposer cette chanson-là. Et je voudrais dire quelque chose par rapport à tout ce qui a été dit depuis le début. On a vu dans un des slides que tu projetais, Jason, le fait aussi de penser à ce qu'on appelle les intelligences multiples. On peut tout à fait envisager que cette chanson-là, on l'exploite en classe avec les élèves pour leur montrer comment ça marche justement, exactement comme ce que Jason proposait. Et puis ensuite, y renvoyer ceux qui en ont besoin. Ceux qui, justement, pour qui l'apprentissage par cœur avec un rythme imprimé sur les mots, sur les verbes, parce que pour eux, ça passe par la sonorité. Et tu parlais de « when you talked about rhythm, you were also doing this ». Ceux qui sont kinesthésiques, c'est comme ça qu'on dit. Voilà. Ça va les aider, le rythme va les aider. Et donc ça, je pense que dans un deuxième temps, c'est extraordinaire pour fixer la mémorisation.
Yeah. Oui. Je préfère le mot en anglais retention. C'est retention, c'est séparé en français? Non, c'est pas ça. Non. Je veux dire, for me, retention is such a beautiful word. It's just remembering. For me, memorization, we can debate the word, but for me, it conjures up images of conscious, I have to learn. Did you memorize the song your grandmother sang you? In English as well. So I give you, the whole idea behind relax, repeat, remember is, most of the things that we remember today long term, like songs from when we were kids, a television commercial from 1994, it's not because we studied it consciously to remember, it's the opposite. It's because we were just sitting there in front of the TV. And that's how, of course, companies get you with their jingles. And, there's just this power that rhythm and rhyme have. Well, yeah, just when you're growing up, we take for granted so many things that we learn, not just songs, sayings, and I collect them in my notebooks when I see them because they're just so many of them we learn because rhyme and rhythm help us remember. Or, in English, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, see you in the morning light. It's like your parents are rapping to you when you're going to bed. It's like, it's just a natural thing, that rhyme and rhythm. You don't have to call it rap, but it's there, yeah. Sorry, more questions if you have them.
He's really lucky and really happy to have you. So on what conditions or how can we organize you to come to our
Great
school
question.
if you want?
You may have noticed.
How much are you? How motivated
Madeline,
are you?
This is my colleague Madeline.
Okay, hello Madeline.
We have an association called Aurémie's Plaisir d'apprendre, and I do my atelier at collège and lycée through the association. And Madeline can give you information, or I can also.
Yeah, I'd really be delighted to have some
I'm
information.
doing about 2
I have
or
a
3
colleague.
a week in France right now. I'm doing mostly in France.
Yeah, but maybe next year if it's not this year. But I would really like, and if you plan something, well, I'm from Marseille, so that's quite far from.
I was just there. So
You
I go
were
to
just
Marseille
there?
a couple times a year, sometimes 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
If I want you to come to my school, then maybe I have to talk to other people from Marseille to get you to just one trip for 4 or 5 schools.
Madeline can send you the information.
I'd love that. I'd love that. Okay, thank you.
You're
to
from find me,
Marseille
it's
too?
really, really easy because Fluency MC at Gmail. If you want to just remember my name and Gmail. The other thing is E for English songs. So if you're using the books, I can also come and do songs. So that's another thing I wanted to mention at the end. So if I do an atelier, you can, if they know my songs from YouTube, that's great. But if you're working on songs from 3e, 4e or 5e, I think I've done it only a couple times so far. I'd love to do that more. Because that, to me, is really exciting as a teacher, to go if the students already worked with you, and then here's the guy who did the song, and, from the book. So I would love to do that more.
And I have another question,
Yes.
is that when you organize a session for students, do they all have to be the same age? Because I work in a small school.
No, we can mix them. As long as I know ahead of time what I'm getting into.
Okay, yes.
Now, as you can imagine, I have to adapt a lot, and that's
obviously
actually interesting as a teacher to
I'd
think
love
about.
that.
And
okay. So
no
maybe
problem.
see you next year then.
I hope so, yeah. And if anybody's interested, I'm lucky because Madeline's here. We work together, but she's basically managing the workshops now in France and Belgium, and I'm going to Switzerland next week for the first time, so yeah. Yeah, it's a little more than that. It's more of a colleague thing, but yeah. Anyone else have a question or comment or no? And I know it's time to go, so okay. Well, thanks very much and thank you. Thank you. You want to go back to your slide or?
Non. Et ben voilà. Merci infiniment. C'était très très chouette de vous avoir toute la journée. Je suis ravie qu'on ait pu échanger. On n'a pas du tout fait le tour, mais voilà, l'idée c'est que si ça vous a plu, on puisse en organiser d'autres. Et voilà, je vous remercie beaucoup. On reste en contact. Merci.
Merci Mélanie.